Hello everyone, Colin Cadet here for Woodworkweb. Today we're going to do something completely different. Today I'm going to do a question and answer period. I'm getting a lot of questions from viewers and I'm not always able to answer the questions in a detailed manner, so today I'm going to take the time and go through a lot of those questions. I know a lot of you are interested in using the Osmo product, and we did a series on Osmo, and quite a few of you have asked which Osmo product. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not an expert in Osmo. When I have a project to do, I have to go to my Osmo expert and I tell him what kind of a finish I'm looking for and what I need to use, and he tells me, he makes a recommendation on a product. Now the one that I've settled on that I use most of the time is this one. This is the Osmo product that I use most frequently. It's called the PolyX product, and it's a 3054 clear, and it gives obviously a clear finish, but it gives sort of a satin. It's not gloss and it's not matte. It's that lovely finish that's sort of in between a gloss and a matte, and I really like this product. So if you're looking to try Osmo, this is the one that I use, but you may want to check with your dealer because you may have a different requirement. And while we're still with finishes, here's a question from Pussy Pirate. He says, I have two questions. First, if you want to dye shellac and you need alcohol-based furniture stain, how do you know if it's alcohol-based? That's a really good question, and here's how you check that. Here's an old can of Varathane that I've had around my shop for quite some time, and it's still pretty full. I haven't used much of it, if any, and I can actually read the label, but a lot of times the label gets obscured with, in this case, the stain, and you can't actually read it. So how do you know if it's alcohol-based? Well, get yourself a little bit of water, put it in a jug like that, a little cup, then dip into your product, whatever it is, and this one works really well. It's a perfect example because it's a gel, and I'm just going to fish out a little bit of this and put it right in there. And I'm going to show you a close-up of that in a second. There you can see right in there, and you can see that this isn't mixing at all well with the water. It's actually sticking to the side of the plastic, but it's not mixing with the water. It's globbing up like that. That means that this product is a petroleum-based product, and that's how you tell what is water-based and what is petroleum-based. Now, the second question that he has is, I have some quite old shellac from a bottle from a long time ago. I tested it. It looks somewhat fine. Why do people say not to use old shellac? And that's a great question. And the reason is that very often old shellac does not adhere properly. On different woods, it can go on blotchy looking, and that means it's not adhering properly. The second thing that old shellac can do is sometimes it doesn't dry. It takes a long time to dry. Now, the way you can test shellac to see if it's any good is to just put a little bit on some glass or some plastic, a plastic sheet, and let it sit for about 15-20 minutes at 50, 60, 70 degrees, something like that. It should be dry to touch after about 15 or 20 minutes. If it's still quite tacky, then it's not worth using. And the reason that you don't want to use old shellac is because you go to all of the hard work of making a project, a woodwork project. You don't want to jeopardize that by using something that's an old product. And shellac is really easy to mix up. It comes as a flake form. You just mix it with alcohol and let it sit overnight, and it's ready to use the next day. It's pretty simple, and you can mix up just the amount you need. So it's one of the most economical finishes that you can find. The next question we have is from Willie from Scotland. And Willie, I believe Willie's making boxes. And what he says is when he's on his table saw, when he cuts a right angle like that, he gets a good cut. But when he cuts this, and I believe he's cutting 45-degree angles so that the boards come together like that, and you get a nice, a nice 45-degree cut like that. When he cuts them at the angle on his table saw, this degree is, or this angle is now off. And I don't know what kind of a saw you're using, Willie, if it's a contractor saw or a direct drive saw, but what I can tell you is what you're probably experiencing is that your blade is probably not situated properly in your table saw. You probably need to check your blade, and in a table saw you always, everything aligns with the slots in your on the tabletop. The fence needs to be absolutely in line with the slot, and the blade also needs to be perfectly in line with the slot. And I'll show you how you can check that. Now, to check if the blade is running true, what Willie is saying, that when he's cutting with the blade like this, he's getting, his cuts are fine. It's only when the blade is at an angle, at a 45-degree angle, that he's getting a miscut. But I'm still suspect that the blade is not sitting properly in the saw, and when he twists it, it's more emphasized. So the first thing you need to do, Willie, is check to make sure that your blade is sitting properly. It must be absolutely parallel to the slots. And I have a little dial thing here, but you know what? You could take this dial thing off here and actually just make some little jig here with a nail or a screw. And of course, you always want to make sure your saw is turned off or unplugged to do this. And you always want to check the blade at the same spot. You can't just run through like this, because this blade might be warped a tiny bit that you'll never know. And also you need to make sure that there isn't some play, and this one's got a little bit of play in it, so it's giving a little bit of a false reading that way too. So you check it, then you rotate the blade all the way through to the next spot and check the dial, or in your case you could check with a sharpened bolt or something that you can adjust a little bit, and you want to make sure that that blade is running absolutely true so that it's parallel with that slot. We have almost every video we produce, we have an associated article on Woodworkweb, and a lot of the questions that you ask, you can actually find answers for them on Woodworkweb. So, I'm Colin Canet for Woodworkweb. Don't forget to subscribe, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.